The first witness to appear today was former Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Natural Resources Hugo Pat, the man at the center of the transaction for this Toyota Tacoma. He asked the Prime Minister to sell it to him, but says he then ran into financial difficulties, so he asked a friend, Juvencio Herrera, to buy it on his behalf.
So when you say he purchased it for you, you mean he would use his own monies to pay for it?
Yes, sir.
And you were supposed to pay him back?
That's exactly the case, sir.
So you made a loan from Mr. Herrera?
Yes, sir.
But what were the terms for repayment of the loan, and how much was the loan for?
It was for $65,000.
And how was the $65,000 to be repaid?
This would have been repaid fully.
But Juvencio Herrera didn't have the money, so he made a loan from this guy, Kelvin Lee, also known as Zurong Lee, who happens to own dozens of parcels of land, much of it transacted in a single day in those heady last days before the general election. The chairman of the Commission of Inquiry tried to make a connection between Pat as the Minister of Lands and Lee, the landowner, and the man who financed the purchase of Pat's Tacoma.
Do you know who Mr. Kevin Lee is?
I do not know, Mr. Chairman.
Over the period July 2020 through November 2020, you transferred 8 lots on San Pedro to Mr. Zurong Lee. Do you remember that?
I do not remember, Mr. Chairman. I don't, as I said, individually, it would be very difficult for me to actually identify who got approved.
But the approvals were done by you as Minister of Natural Resources, were they not?
There is a process that has to be followed. And once that has gone through that vetting process as we speak, then the applications are recommended. And so once those are recommended, all that we do is just sign off on those.
So you just sign off on them automatically once they come on your desk?
Once it's recommended, I do, sir.
Does it surprise you that 8 lots on San Pedro would have been approved and recommended for the same individual?
I wouldn't know, sir, but all I can indicate is that we approved, we signed off on thousands of applications.
Wouldn't it be a cause for concern that this single individual can have such ready access to government lands?
As long as you're a Belizean, you're entitled to a parcel, you're entitled to land in this country.
What about 12 pieces? Do you recall that on 3rd November 2020 you approved 10.299 acres in Carmelita to Mr. Zurong Lee?
I do not recall, sir.
Do you recall that on the 27th October 2020 you transferred half acre in San Pedro to Mr. Zurong Lee?
This continued for a few minutes, going over Zurong Lee's many land transactions, and every single time the answer was,
I do not recall, Mr. Chairman.
Would you be surprised to learn that all these transfers in favor of Mr. Zurong Lee happened in one day?
Mr. Chairman, we expedited for 13,000 people, Belizeans, in 2019. And if I'm not mistaken, it will be close to that figure in 2020.
Would it surprise you to learn that over the course of the year, running from October 2019 through November 2020, there were also a dozen transfers of government land to Mr. Lee via third parties?
I have no idea, Mr. Chairman.
You have parcel 2120 San Pedro, goes to Isaias Franco, and within the same day gets transferred to Mr. Lee.
I have no idea, Mr. Chairman.
But what I've described here seems to be a well thought out scheme of diverting government resources into the hands of this single individual, using the names of third parties or with the complicity of third parties.
Are you making any accusation that I am involved in any wrongdoing, Mr. Chairman?
No, I'm making no accusation. I'm asking you, how do you explain the sheer volume of these transfers that ended up in Mr. Lee? If you look at San Pedro alone, and you're looking at 20 lots to Mr. Lee, why does a single individual want 20 lots in San Pedro? Why would the government facilitate his applications and requests for 20 lots?
I have no idea of what you're talking about, Mr. Chairman.
Does it concern you any that the contract with the government for the acquisition of the vehicle would disqualify you as a sitting member of the House? You see, sitting members may only enter into contracts with the government with the permission of Governor General. The Constitution is very clear on it.
Mr. Chairman, as far as I'm concerned, I made a request and, for a purchase of a vehicle. In my knowledge, that was a legal transaction.
And again, this is the man in the middle of the transaction, Jovencio Herrera, but he lawyered up just half an hour before the commission commenced. So they gave him until March 10th to consult with his attorney and reappear. Zurong Lee, known as Kelvin, was next to appear, but he said he doesn't know Hugo Pat either. He simply knew and trusted Jovencio Herrera, a builder, to make him that $65,000 vehicle loan.
He approached me to extend assistance for him, which I agreed. And at the same time, I have some money that was going to pay back to me. So instead, go direct to me, then give it to Jovencio. I instructed Mr. Torres and Marine Services to make the direct payment to the government.
Did you inquire of Mr. Herrera what was the purpose of the loan?
No.
You didn't ask him what he wanted $65,000 for?
No, he just asked me for a loan and he said to the government, and I said to the government, that's fine.
You were confident that Mr. Herrera would be in a position to repay you this $65,000?
If I have doubted his personality, I wouldn't lend him.
So how did he get all those lands?
I apply at Lands Department.
How do you do that?
At every government department, just go in and apply.
How do you go in and apply?
You could walk in, right?
Yes, you could walk in. And how do you apply?
Get the form, apply.
Did you go in and pay on the 3rd November 2020 and get your title on the same day? Do you think you received favored treatments from the Lands Department in the processing of these and other transfers?
I cannot say on their behalf.
No, I'm talking about on your behalf.
I just know I go and did my business, and that's about it.
And when he didn't want to disclose who his third-party sellers were, the chairman lost his patience.
You have the
Mr. Lee, you bought land that belonged to the people of Belize, the whole public, the same public that you owe an obligation to explain how you got it.
Mr. Chairman, can you look at the files for that 52-acre?
Yes, 52.7 acres.
In Chanchen. That's...
No, in 10-pound key
yes,
registration section.
That's the area. I planned to have a farm, so they approached me and I bought it.
Who did you buy it from, Mr. Lee?
I have to disclose that information.
Lee explained that he bought many third-party properties but appeared bewildered when confronted with the fact that most of them were processed in a single day.
In one day?
One day?
I don't know.
Same day?
I don't know.
You don't know? You've never had a transfer start and finish in one day and you walk away with title the same day?
I don't recall.
You don't recall?
I choose not to answer that one because I don't want to disclose any of this information in the public.
This is a public inquiry. Those lands belong to the public.
Of course.
You bought them from the public. How are you not going to tell the public?
I just said I bought it from private individuals.
Who were in the process of acquiring it from the people of Belize.
But there are two names he did recall, the brothers Castro.
You also bought lots from the Castro brothers.
Oh yes, the bigger brother approached me and say, you know, my little brother have property for sale. Are you interested? And I say, yeah, sure.
And you paid them $13,000 each too?
I think those one is around 20,000 or something like that.
These ones are better than Mr. Franco's one?
Yeah,